Mr. Chris de Souza.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of this bill seeking to amend the MDA. Despite the challenges with taking such a strong stance on drugs, I have always held to my strong conviction that this is the best way to protect Singapore and protect families. I have spoken before of our continuing need to review our MDA to tackle new and emerging threats, particularly new psychoactive substances, because of how fast such substances evolve and arrive on our shores. So I am greatly heartened to see the ministry grabbing the bull by its horns and preemptively creating this new regime and statutory framework to regulate psychoactive substances. The threat that NPSs pose cannot be underestimated, and I speak not just about the situation in Singapore, but globally, because drugs are a transnational issue that we must collectively combat. The number of NPSs internationally far exceed the number of controlled psychoactive substances by almost 3 times. That is because a simple modification to the chemical structure can result in a new variant. In the 2022 report by the UN Office on Drug and Crime, it was recorded that there were 1,150 identified NPSs across 134 countries, with 50 new ones being recorded since the year before. The report detailed the global increase in countries reporting seizures of synthetic NPSs, indicating a far greater geographical spread of trafficking. In 2009 and 2010, only 30 countries were reporting seizures of synthetic NPS. By 2019 to 2020, that number had increased to 57 countries, a jump from 18% of countries reporting to 41% of countries reporting. Not only do NPSs evolve rapidly, Asia accounts for a large percentage of the NPSs being trafficked. In particular, the largest quantities of synthetic NPS seized is ketamine, with a lot of the seizures happening in East and Southeast Asia, in countries like Malaysia, Thailand, and China. While the market for ketamine for non-medical use seems to have decreased in China, there has been a trend of expansion of the ketamine market since 2015 in the rest of Southeast Asia. Plant-based NPS like kratom and kat or chat have also been proliferating, with more countries reporting seizure, and the largest seizures for kratom has been in Malaysia, Thailand, and Myanmar. These are but some of the most seized NPSs, but there are many more also used and likely on the rise. Indonesia has seen a sharp increase in seizures of domestically manufactured synthetic cannabinoids and what is known as guerrilla tobacco. The global and regional situation is reflected in Singapore, where NPSs are the 3rd most commonly abused drug, and a sharp increase in seizures of synthetic cannabinoids over the last 5 years. This prevalence is highly concerning, especially so because the global trend is that NPS use is about 2.2% higher among school populations than the general population. In addition, NPS causes just as much harm as other drugs, with physical and psychological reactions such as paranoia, seizures, hallucinations, and even death. Mr. Speaker, I therefore strongly support the new regime that has been proposed to tackle NPS. It continues the Ministry of Home Affairs and CNB's long-standing efforts to combat the rise of NPS. In 2010, we first listed 3 NPS under the MDA. In 2013, we introduced a more generic listing approach given the chemical similarity between different NPSs. Finally, in 2021, we had listed another 13 NPS and a further 13 more in 2022 as controlled drugs, in addition to the 12 generic groups. So we have continued to look at our statutory provisions and considered how we may best strengthen them to protect any tolerance of NPS, or to protect against any tolerance of NPS. The amendment bill then is a very welcome addition, and I applaud MHA and CNB for their work. With Part 2 specifically listing out offences relating to NPS, we are able to target the trafficking, manufacturing, and importing of NPS. Importantly, this includes offences of exposing a child to NPS or permitting a young person to consume NPS. I also support the change in the 5th schedule by listing what substances are excluded from the definition of an NPS. It creates a much broader ambit, since now any substance not listed within the 5th schedule can be captured. This squarely deals with the proliferation of NPS variants, such that the MDA need not be constantly updated, which would be too lengthy a process and ill-equipped to handle the fast-paced nature of the NPS market. In relation to that, Clause 32 of the Amendment Bill, seeking to enhance the Minister's ability to amend the schedule under Section 59, will reflect this preemptive regime we are putting in place to tackle NPS. Mr. Speaker, even as we debate this amendment to strengthen our laws against NPS, I strongly believe, our other pillar of rehabilitation in our policy against drugs is equally important. We must recognize that NPS is a growing market, and today's amendment bill reflects that. But we should also place keen emphasis on rehabilitation so that we build a stronger social compact of individuals who have no desire for any sort of substance. Earlier, I mentioned the trend of NPS being particularly attractive to the younger generation. I think we have to carefully monitor that, because 1 in 4 drug abusers locally is under 30 years of age, and that includes more than 50% of new abusers. Therefore, the crucial role of rehabilitation in integrating those who have fallen afoul of our drug laws back into society by giving them second chances. This is done through programs for the public or education institutions to interact with former offenders and increasing their employability. At the end of the day, a former drug abuser has to not only leave a physical prison, but break out of a social prison in order to reintegrate. Lowering these invisible bars of prejudice and suspicion and providing them opportunities to be mentored will allow young drug abusers to transform and overcome their rough start. Mr. Speaker, this amendment bill equips our legislation well with the necessary toughness yet flexibility to deal with MPS. It provides for future flexibility to continue to evolve quickly to changes in the illicit MPS market. And for all these reasons, I support the bill.